All right, folks, welcome back. We are continuing to work on being able to improve our writing style, and we're talking about well-focused sentences and sharpening the focus of our sentences. So in this video, we're going to look at removing abstract subjects to make our sentences a lot more clear. So we'll look at how to identify abstract subjects in a sentence and then focus on revising those to help sharpen the focus and make sure that the sentence is very clear. So in this first sentence, we've got the phenomenon of boomerang children, young adults who return to live with their parents after graduating from college, is an occurrence faced by many families today. Now, underlined the subject there, which is phenomenon, but if you look at the sentence, it's kind of confusing to see what the sentence is actually saying, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that this word phenomenon is just an abstract concept. So we typically, as readers, we want more concrete kind of things. So if I broke down the sentence into its basic part, I've got phenomenon is an occurrence. That's very vague. We don't really know exactly what that means. So we got to clear that up. If I go back to this sentence here, phenomenon is not a concrete noun. So what we got to do is find what are our concrete nouns here. We've got boomerang children, we've got young adults, occurrence faced by many families. So we could take those and then we could potentially write a sentence using any of those as the subject. In this sentence here, same thing, disagreement about financial matters such as the expectation of paying rent for the young adult's own room. It may be a point of difference between parents and children. Disagreement is the subject there, but at the root of the sentence, the basic sentence is disagreement may be a point of difference. Again, that wording is a little bit confusing. It's not necessarily that the sentence is grammatically incorrect, it's just a little bit difficult to understand. So what we're going to do to fix this stuff is we need to make sure that we find some kind of either human or concrete noun somewhere in the sentence that is going to be the active doer of the sentence, and then we're going to rewrite the sentence using that as the subject. Again, if we go to this other one, what's the concrete deal? We've got young adult here that could be acting. We've got parents and children that could be performing the actions. So what I did is I took the active subject in that first sentence and I used boomerang children, and then we made that the subject of the sentence, and then we wrote from there on. So boomerang children are, and notice that I've got the subject and verb are right next to each other. That's one of the things that makes a sentence a lot more clear and easier to understand. Boomerang children are young adults who return to live with their parents after graduating from college. Many families face this phenomenon today, which that should actually be a semicolon between those, but you get the idea that I've got that kind of sentence together. Again, in the second sentence, I used families as the subject there. Instead of just saying parents and children, I combined that together. Families face. Again, subject, verb, right there next to each other, making that sentence a lot more clear. In that second example sentence, we identified some different things that could be the subject. So again, two other options that we could do here. The first, I might use parents and children as the subject. So what's the parents and children, what are they doing? They're disagreeing. So again, parents and children may disagree. I got the subject and verb right there next to each other about own financial matters such as rent for the young adult's own room. Or if I want to focus on the parents side on that, I make parents the subject. What are they doing? They are expecting. So again, subject verb pair, parents may expect payment for a room that the young adult considers his or her own. Again, both of those sentences grammatically correct. It's more of a stylistic choice what you want to focus the sentence on. But that is a lot more clear, having the subject verb right next to each other and having concrete objects performing concrete actions. Now, one of the things that can often be troubling is when you're using transitions in sentences, that can often create abstract subjects. So if we look at this sentence here, if I say a second way that families can address the ambiguities of their new situation is to establish ground rules. I did a good job transitioning a second way, but the problem here is that way is the subject, so I've got to figure out what is going to perform that action, and then what I really need to do, I'm not going to get rid of the transition, I'm just going to find a better transition. So again, I've got to identify some kind of concrete, something that's going to perform an action. And if I look, the verb in the sentence is actually address. If I look at who or what is that doing the addressing, families is the concrete noun that's going to perform the action. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that the subject of the sentence, and then I'm going to edit this phrase. Instead of the second way that, I'm going to find a different kind of transition. So what I come up with is, instead of saying the second way that, I'm just going to use second as my transition, and then I've got families as the subject can address. Again, subject and verb right next to each other. All right. One more example. So here I've got another reason that the U.S. Invasion of Iraq was a mistake. And again, reason is the simple subject, but the whole subject phrase is another reason that this was a mistake is that. So what I've got to do is, again, figure out kind of what's the action, who's performing that action, and then I'm going to redo that as the subject-verb pair and then find a better transition. Now, this one is a little tough because there's not an actual active verb in there, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of thinking. So what is happening in this sentence? And the key there is the word invasion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take invasion and I'm going to make it a verb, which I'll use the word invaded, and then what I look at is who's doing that, the United States. Now I've got my subject-verb pair, United States invaded. And then I'm just going to come up with a better transition than that big long transition. So what I came up with is I would use the transition furthermore, and then I've got, again, my subject-verb pair, United States invaded Iraq. So again, having that subject-verb right next to each other makes it a lot more clear. So just going over some of the key points, when you've got those abstract subjects, find the human or concrete noun that's performing an action in the sentence, and then you're going to make that the subject. And then if the abstract subject is because of a transitional phrase, then just find a better, clearer transition to do that instead of the big, long, abstract transition.